Donald Trump's shocking redemption. Homeless vet and corrupt CEO expose hidden truth. Welcome to a mesmerizing journey where the dazzling lights of Miami hide secrets that stir the soul. Picture yourself stepping into Freedom Mall, where luxurious facades clash with the raw truths of life. A place where Donald Trump seeks redemption, Tyson hides his inner conflicts behind a mask of power, and Jack's unyielding spirit defies all odds. Every moment is a pulse of emotion and unexpected twists that invite you to look deeper into the human condition. If you're passionate about stories that reveal the hidden layers of reality and leave you craving more, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join our community of truth seekers. The sun blazed down on Miami, its golden rays reflecting off the polished surfaces of luxury vehicles parked outside Freedom Mall, a bustling commercial hub that symbolized both opulence and hidden despair. This was a place where extremes collided. High-end boutiques stood side by side with dark alleys where the homeless sought refuge from the world's harsh gaze. The air buzzed with activity as shoppers strolled through the marble-floored corridors, their designer bags swinging rhythmically at their sides. Yet just beyond the gilded facades lay another reality, one of struggle, resilience, and quiet desperation. Amidst this juxtaposition of wealth and poverty, three individuals found themselves entangled in an unexpected web of fate. Each carried secrets, burdens, and dreams that would soon intersect in ways none could have foreseen. Donald Trump, dressed impeccably in a tailored suit and his signature red tie, navigated the crowded aisles of the candy store with purpose. Today, he wasn't here for himself. Rather, he had come to purchase cotton candy for his young granddaughter, who adored the sweet treat almost as much as she adored her grandfather. But beneath his confident demeanor lay a layer of complexity often overlooked by the public eye. Concealed within the inner pocket of his jacket was a small notebook, its pages filled with scribbled notes about charitable projects, ideas born not out of altruism, but from a desire to rebuild his tarnished image following recent scandals. As he carefully selected a bag of pink cotton candy, his thoughts drifted momentarily to these plans, each one meticulously crafted to align with his strategic vision. Not far from the candy store, Jack sat slouched against the cold concrete wall of an alleyway, his tattered coat pulled tightly around him despite the warmth of the day. Once a proud member of the Marine Corps, life had taken a cruel turn after he exposed corruption within his unit. Betrayed by those he trusted most, he lost everything: his home, his career, and nearly his sanity. Now all he had left was Shadow, a sleek black cat with piercing green eyes that had saved his life during a forest fire years ago. To many, Jack might seem like just another faceless figure among the countless others living on the margins of society. But there was something remarkable about him. An unyielding spirit that refused to be extinguished no matter how bleak the circumstances became. Then there was Tyson, a towering presence whose imposing figure commanded attention wherever he went. Owner of a prominent insurance company, Tyson prided himself on maintaining an aura of respectability. He wore expensive suits, drove flashy cars, and donated generously to charity events, all part of a carefully constructed persona designed to mask the darker truths lurking beneath the surface. Few knew about the debts inherited from his late father or the desperate measures he'd taken to keep his business afloat. Even fewer suspected the lengths he'd go to protect his reputation, including bribing law enforcement officials when necessary. To the casual observer, Tyson appeared untouchable. But appearances, as they say, can be deceiving. As the afternoon sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the mall's parking lot, the stage was set for an encounter that would challenge preconceived notions and force everyone involved to confront uncomfortable truths about themselves and the world around them. Little did they know, it was only the beginning of a journey that would test their values, reshape their relationships, and ultimately reveal the transformative power of compassion, even when it stemmed from the unlikeliest of places. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows over the bustling Freedom Mall, its golden hues softening the harsh edges of reality for a brief moment. But beneath this deceptive tranquility, tension simmered like an unseen storm waiting to erupt. Tyson strode confidently through the crowded parking lot, his polished boots clicking against the asphalt with every deliberate step. His leather jacket gleamed under the sunlight, exuding an air of authority that commanded attention. As he passed by Jack, who sat slumped against the wall with Shadow curled up beside him, Tyson's expression darkened. To him, people like Jack were nothing more than blights on society, reminders of failures he couldn't afford to acknowledge in himself. "Look at you," Tyson sneered, stopping just a few feet away from Jack. "A grown man begging for scraps while pampering a cat? Pathetic." With a swift kick, he sent Jack's tin can clattering across the ground, coins scattering in all directions. Shadow leapt to its feet, fur bristling, and let out a low growl that reverberated through the alleyway. "You think your little pet can scare me?" Tyson barked, grabbing Shadow by the scruff of its neck. The black cat writhed and hissed, but Tyson's grip was unyielding. "Useless creatures like you should be put down." From a distance, Donald Trump watched the scene unfold with growing unease. Initially, he had been drawn to the commotion purely out of curiosity, another opportunity to capture footage for one of his carefully curated social media posts. After all, what better way to rehabilitate his image than to stage a public act of kindness? But as he observed Tyson's brutal treatment of both Jack and Shadow, something stirred deep within him. A memory long buried but impossible to ignore. Whiskers. The name surfaced unbidden in his mind, accompanied by the haunting image of the small, scrawny kitten he had once adopted during his early days in New York. Abandoned and left to fend for itself, Whiskers had eventually succumbed to starvation after being chased away from countless doorsteps. At the time, Trump had convinced himself it wasn't his responsibility to intervene. Now, staring at Shadow struggling in Tyson's grasp, he realized how wrong he had been. "This isn't about publicity," Trump muttered under his breath, clutching the phone tightly in his hand. "Not this time." Summoning his courage, Trump approached the pair, his presence commanding despite the casual demeanor he tried so hard to maintain. "Let go of that cat," he demanded, his voice firm yet measured. Tyson turned toward the newcomer, surprise flickering briefly across his face before morphing into disdain. "And who are you supposed to be? Some kind of hero now?" Trump ignored the jibe, focusing instead on the bigger picture. "You may have money and power, Tyson, but kicking someone when they're down doesn't make you strong. It makes you weak. Real strength comes from helping those who need it most." For a moment there was silence. The crowd that had gathered around began murmuring among themselves, their initial skepticism giving way to cautious admiration. Even Jack looked up, confusion etched into his weathered features. Was this really happening? But Tyson wasn't ready to back down without a fight. "You don't know anything about me," he spat, releasing Shadow and stepping closer to Trump. "You think I'm some heartless monster because I kicked a tin can? You've got no idea what I've been through." Before Trump could respond, Shadow darted forward, claws extended, and raked them across Tyson's face in a flash of fury. The biker stumbled backward, clutching his bleeding cheek, shock registering in his eyes. For the first time he seemed genuinely shaken, not by fear, but by the realization that even a creature as seemingly powerless as a stray cat could defy him. As the tension hung heavy in the air, Trump found himself reflecting on the parallels between Shadow and Whiskers. Both were survivors, driven by instincts far stronger than any human emotion. And both had taught him lessons he desperately needed to learn. "I understand where you're coming from," Trump said softly, addressing Tyson directly. "But holding on to anger and resentment won't solve anything. It'll only consume you." With that he stepped aside, allowing the crowd to fully witness the unfolding drama. Little did anyone know, this was merely the beginning of a much larger transformation. One that would ripple through their lives in ways none of them could have predicted. The atmosphere in the alleyway crackled with tension as Donald Trump stood face to face with Tyson, their eyes locked in a silent battle of wills. The crowd that had gathered around them buzzed with anticipation, unsure of what would happen next. For Jack, who sat frozen against the wall with Shadow pressed protectively to his chest, this moment felt surreal, like watching two titans collide while he remained caught in the crossfire. "You prey on people like Jack," Trump accused, his voice cutting through the murmurs of the onlookers. "You exploit their vulnerabilities for profit, then turn around and kick them when they're down. That doesn't make you strong, it makes you weak. A real leader doesn't crush others to rise, they lift them up." Tyson sneered, his lips curling into a smirk that failed to mask the flicker of unease in his eyes. "And what do you know about leadership? You're just another rich guy playing hero for the cameras. Everything you do is calculated, isn't it? This whole scene, you orchestrated it to look good, didn't you?" Trump hesitated, the weight of Tyson's words momentarily throwing him off balance. It was true. He had initially come here seeking an opportunity to improve his public image. But something about this situation felt different. Something deeper stirred within him, urging him to act not out of self-interest but genuine concern. "I won't deny that my intentions weren't entirely altruistic at first," Trump admitted, surprising both Tyson and the crowd. "But seeing Shadow struggle in your grip reminded me of Whiskers, a kitten I once abandoned to its fate. Back then I convinced myself it wasn't my responsibility. Today I refused to make the same mistake." As if on cue, Trump reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. With a few quick taps he activated a video file, holding the device up so everyone could see. The footage showed Tyson in a dimly lit office, exchanging envelopes stuffed with cash with a uniformed police officer. The transaction was unmistakable, bribery in broad daylight. "Is this the kind of leader you want to be?" Trump asked, his tone sharp yet measured. "Or are you ready to own up to your mistakes?" For a moment silence reigned supreme. Then Tyson's facade cracked. His shoulders slumped, and his gaze dropped to the ground as shame washed over him. "You don't understand," he whispered, his voice barely audible above the hum of the crowd. "It's not just me. It's the debts I inherited from my father. He left behind a mountain of obligations, and I did whatever it took to keep our family business afloat. I thought I had no other choice." The revelation sent ripples through the gathering. Murmurs erupted as people processed the unexpected twist. Even Jack looked startled, his expression shifting from anger to sympathy. Here was a man who had worn the mask of villainy, only to reveal himself as a victim of circumstance, a tragic figure trapped by forces beyond his control. "But excuses don't erase actions," Trump countered firmly, though his tone softened slightly. "If we let fear dictate our choices, we'll never break free from the chains that bind us. Admitting fault is the first step toward redemption." Tyson nodded slowly, his jaw clenched tight. "I messed up," he admitted, raising his head to meet Trump's gaze. "And I'm willing to pay the price, but I also want to change. To make amends." The crowd erupted into applause, their initial hostility toward Trump transforming into admiration. Even those who had despised him moments ago now saw him in a new light. Not as a calculating opportunist, but as someone capable of growth and compassion. As the tension dissipated, Trump turned to Jack, extending a hand. "We all deserve second chances," he said, his voice carrying a quiet sincerity. "Would you consider helping me with a project? Building homes for people like yourself?" Jack stared at the offered hand, disbelief written across his weathered face. Then after a pause he smiled, a rare genuine smile, and shook it. "Sure," he replied simply. "Let's get started." Meanwhile, Tyson stepped forward, addressing the crowd directly. "I can't undo the past, but I can try to fix it. Starting today, I'll dedicate my resources to making things right." And with that, the stage was set for a transformation, not just of individuals but of the entire community. Little did they know, this confrontation marked the beginning of a journey that would redefine their lives forever. As the dust settled in the alleyway, a palpable sense of transformation hung in the air. The confrontation had laid bare the vulnerabilities and motivations of each character, forcing them to confront uncomfortable truths about themselves and their actions. Now came the moment of reckoning, the opportunity for redemption. Shadow, still bristling with protective energy, leapt from Jack's arms and landed squarely on Tyson's chest, claws extended. A sharp hiss escaped its throat as it swiped across Tyson's face, leaving 3 deep scratches that bled profusely. For a brief second there was silence. Then Tyson did something unexpected. Instead of retaliating, he let out a low chuckle, his shoulders shaking with an almost hysterical laughter. "You win," he muttered, raising his hands in surrender. "Even a stray cat can teach me more about courage than I've ever learned." The crowd gasped, taken aback by the sudden shift in Tyson's demeanor. Here was a man who moments ago had embodied arrogance and cruelty, now humbled by the smallest creature in the room. It was a stark reminder that strength often lies not in dominance but in vulnerability. Donald Trump stepped forward, his expression softened by a flicker of understanding. "We all make mistakes," he said gently, though his words carried the weight of experience. "But the real test is whether we're willing to admit them and change." With that, He extended a hand toward Tyson, offering not just forgiveness but also an olive branch. "I have a proposition for you," Trump continued, his voice firm yet compassionate. "You've built a successful business, albeit through questionable means. Why not channel those skills into something meaningful? My organization is launching several charitable projects aimed at helping people like Jack get back on their feet. You could play a vital role in shaping these initiatives." Tyson hesitated, clearly caught off guard by the offer. He glanced around at the faces surrounding him. Faces filled with curiosity, skepticism, and most surprisingly hope. Slowly, he reached out and shook Trump's hand, his grip firm but measured. "I'll do it," he said finally, his voice steady despite the turmoil within. "But not because you asked. Because maybe it's time I stopped running from who I really am." Meanwhile, Jack watched the exchange with growing interest. For years, he had harbored resentment toward men like Tyson, privileged individuals who seemed immune to the struggles of ordinary people. Yet here was one such person acknowledging his flaws and seeking redemption. Perhaps Jack thought change was possible, even for someone as broken as himself. Speaking of which, Trump turned to Jack, his eyes twinkling with mischief. "How would you feel about managing one of our upcoming housing projects? We need someone with integrity and a heart big enough to care." Jack blinked, momentarily speechless. Then a rare smile spread across his face, lighting up features weathered by hardship. "Are you serious?" he asked, incredulity lacing his tone. "As serious as a heart attack," Trump quipped, earning a laugh from the crowd. And so the pieces began falling into place. Tyson agreed to restructure his company, focusing on ethical practices while donating a portion of his profits to charity. Jack accepted the position as project manager, bringing his unique perspective and unwavering dedication to the table. Even Shadow found a new purpose, accompanying Jack to construction sites and becoming an unofficial mascot for the team. But perhaps the most profound transformation occurred within Donald Trump himself. As he walked away from the scene, phone in hand, he paused briefly to glance at Shadow, one last nod to the little black cat that had taught him more about compassion than any human ever could. "This isn't about image anymore," he murmured to himself, typing out a message to his social media team. "It's about truth, about being honest, not just with others but with myself." And with that, the stage was set for a brighter future. Not just for the individuals involved, but for the community they sought to uplift. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm orange glow over Freedom Mall as the day drew to a close. The air buzzed with energy, but this time it wasn't just the hum of commerce. It was the collective hope that had taken root in the hearts of those present. What began as an ordinary afternoon had transformed into something extraordinary, a testament to the power of second chances and the capacity for change. Donald Trump stood at the center of the crowd, his phone held high as he prepared to livestream the momentous occasion. Tyson and Jack stood before him, their hands clasped tightly in a gesture of reconciliation. It was a scene that would have seemed impossible mere hours ago. Yet here they were, two men from opposite ends of the spectrum united by a shared vision for a better future. "Ladies and gentlemen," Trump began, his voice steady despite the emotion coursing through him. "Today marks a turning point, not just for these two individuals but for all of us. We live in a world where judgment comes easily, but understanding takes effort. Where division seems inevitable, unity is still possible." He paused, letting his words sink in. Behind him, Shadow lounged lazily on the ground, its green eyes watching the proceedings with quiet curiosity. Even the little black cat seemed aware of the significance of this moment. "Nations are built not on walls or barriers, but on bridges," Trump continued. "And what greater bridge can we build than one forged from forgiveness and redemption? Today we celebrate the fact that even the most unlikely people can come together to create positive change. That includes me." The crowd erupted into applause, their cheers echoing through the mall like a symphony of hope. For many, this was the first time they'd seen Trump speak so sincerely. Not as a politician or a businessman, but as a human being grappling with his own flaws and seeking to make amends. But as the cameras rolled and the audience cheered, Trump leaned down to whisper something to Shadow, who had wandered closer during the speech. "Whiskers," he murmured softly, stroking the cat's sleek fur. "This one's for you. You taught me more about courage and loyalty than anyone ever could." Later that evening, as the dust settled and the crowd dispersed, each character embarked on their respective journeys of transformation. Jack wasted no time putting his newfound role as project manager to good use, dedicating himself fully to building affordable housing for the homeless community. His cafe, aptly named Shadow's Hope, quickly became a hub of positivity and support, attracting patrons from all walks of life. Tyson, too, found redemption in unexpected ways. Leveraging his legal expertise, he transitioned into a career as a pro bono lawyer, using his knowledge to advocate for the rights of marginalized groups. Though the road ahead wouldn't be easy, he approached it with renewed determination, driven by the realization that true strength lies not in domination but in service. As for Donald Trump, he returned to his familiar routines, but with subtle changes. Each time he dined out, he left a generous tip under the name Whiskers, a silent tribute to the little kitten that had changed his life forever. And while he remained larger than life in both personality and ambition, there was now a depth to his actions, a recognition that even the most flawed among us can find purpose when we choose to look beyond ourselves. In the end, the story of the president's twist wasn't just about one man's journey toward self-discovery. It was about the interconnectedness of humanity. The idea that our choices, no matter how small, ripple outward to affect others in profound ways. Perhaps the greatest lesson of all was this: goodness doesn't always begin with purity of intent. Sometimes it emerges from the darkest corners of our souls, shining brightest when we dare to confront them honestly. And so, as the lights dimmed over Freedom Mall, a new chapter began. One filled with promise, possibility, and the enduring belief that even the unlikeliest heroes can rise from the ashes of adversity. And just when you think the story has reached its climax, prepare yourself, because an unforeseen twist is coming that will change everything you thought you knew.